to say, you guys all know I'm a little bit off anyway, but I can't eat community food. You guys imagine that? All right. I mean, like you go to a social party and people all bring potluck stuff. I can't do it. I just can't. So I've seen too much of it, and I don't know where that egg salad or those deviled eggs were made or whatever. I just, oh boy. So I'm not a big potluck community food person ever. But I'm not obsessive compulsive clean at home. I just can't eat other people's food. I think you can understand that now. So here's lymphatic. Here's what the drainage system looks like. Wherever you have blood vessels throughout the body, you have all of these vessels that will drain the capillary fluid and put it back into circulation. And all of these lymphatics, which are the green, and here's the lymph nodes under the arms, lymph nodes in the neck. They will basically all deposit the lymph back in toward the right atrium up around the heart, and they deposit it back in here. But this is just a massive drainage system in our body. There's the lymph nodes with the afferent and efferent vasculature. It's a little better picture drawn here, but that's what a lymph node looks like. 4 lanes into 2 slows the flow down, and we do have valves here. There's the organs that I talked about. If you didn't know where the thymus was or where the pairs of tonsils are, there's where the spleen actually is, and then the Peyer's patches. The appendix I didn't talk about because it's kind of a what we call a vestigial organ. It's not a vital organ to us anymore, although it's making a comeback too. People can have their appendix removed without any real problem, but they have found it has some helpful bacteria in the appendix that's kind of stored and grows there that helps with breaking down some plant cell vegetables that they get in our system. So to say it has no function is a little stretch for me. It may have a digestive function, but you're just fine if you don't have an appendix if you have one removed. So I didn't talk about it in the lymphatic system setup. Now we get to immune. And immune is covered pretty quickly. I'd like you to use immune, the interactive physiology, and study immune. There's a picture in your textbook. I think it's 2121 now in our new textbook. They haven't given me the new slides yet, so don't write that number down. But all of this is the final exam on the immune. I'll just give it to you up front so you can kind of see the scope of what you're looking at. And I'll follow it through real quick on this picture to give you an idea of what we're talking about. And then we'll go through the slides individually, and we'll probably finish it up. If I don't finish today, we'll finish it up Wednesday and then start the review. But the whole thing about the immune system is that we get something from the outside. We call them antigens. It's an intruder. It's not supposed to be in our body. That's when the immune system actually is activated. When we get something in our body, whether it's a splinter or a bacteria or a virus or whatever it is that's not supposed to be there, we activate what we call innate defenses or adaptive defenses to break that structure down. Innate defenses we all have. Innate just means we're born with them, all right? Does everybody have skin in here? All right, that's actually our leading defender against antigens in our body is our skin, because it's our protective layer that bacteria could land on my hand, but it's not going to get in unless I have a cut. Are we clear on that? So we all have these. We also have mucus in our mouth and in our nose, and those are all defenses against bacteria. So anything innate, and I'll list these out for you, anything innate we all have. And then you get into adaptive defenses where we actually have an antigen in our system. And how do our cells battle? It's a war against this antigen to break it down and get it out of our system. And the cells that we use in this war are immune cells, are B lymphocytes, T lymphocytes, and macrophages. These are our three, the monocytes, the mature monocytes of macrophage. Monocytes and the B and T lymphocytes are the 3 cells that we use. We also use neutrophils, all right, in a secondary type of response. But this whole picture here talks about T cells, and B cells. And that's what the immune system is on. So when you're focusing on the immune, you should look at B cells and T cells, because those are the real cells that are activated. When something unusual comes in our body, we use the immune system to fight it off. A lot of the immune battles go on in the nodes, lymph nodes, and in our tissue. And that's where we get inflammation. If you've got an inflammation going on in your body, you see you get a cut on your hand and all of a sudden pus is coming out of it and it inflames and is red, good. That means your body is fighting it off. And that's what happens with a good immune system, all right? That's what the immune system's all about. Is it complicated? Yeah. Should you watch the Interactive Physiology Immune System? Absolutely. It's animations, it's a battle of knights and castles and warriors and Sherwood Forest. It's got great animations, but it'll tell you exactly what you need to know. So, what we call non-specific defenses, this is innate, so write that down, innate. It's written two ways in our textbook, and I think they've kind of messed it up a little bit, but innate is non-specific. This is things that we all have in our body. Number one, skin and mucous membranes, thank goodness. Number two, acid mantle. A lot of our secretions that are in our hands and in sweat is acidic, and acidity kills bacteria. And so the secretions that we have, like urine as well. Anybody know the pH of urine? Average pH of urine? Yeah? 5 to 8 the average range, but most of that range then is acidic. And the acidity, as urine moves through your urethra, will kill bacteria as it's exiting the body. So that's called the acid mantle. Digestive HCl. So you go make a tuna sandwich today for lunch, and you eat it, and it goes down in your stomach, and it is in a vat of acid. And that kills most bacteria or antigens that are on that tuna sandwich that you picked up from your counter at home as you were making that sandwich. Does that make sense? Anybody gonna eat tuna again? Probably not.
Not today.
Lysozyme, that's a enzyme. When you see zyme, that's an enzyme that is found in tears and saliva that is antibacterial. And then the cilia that's in our trachea will trap antigens that we breathe into our system. So those innate non-specifics, we all have them. We all have them, all right? So our immune system is about the same. It does protect about 98% of the things that come into our system. Then we've got cells that are just there for our immune system. We have phagocytes that are cruising the body, looking for anything abnormal. Doesn't have a stand flag. All the cells in my body have a stand flag on them. You guys know that? You know your blood type, right? Like I'm O negative, all right? Well, those are my cells, and my immune system doesn't attack my cells. So Brittany, you've got cells all over your body that say, I'm a Brittany cell, and your immune system won't attack it, all right? These dudes, these cells cruise around and will attack things that don't have a Brittany flag for Brittany. Kupffer cells are our cruisers in the blank. Anybody know? We talked about Kupffer cells in AMP1 a long time ago. Long time ago. I don't know if anybody remembers or not. Kupffer cells are our phagocytes in our liver. How about Langerhans cells? You guys remember those from AMP1? Those are our phagocytes in our skin. So these cells are cruising around looking for anything that doesn't have a Brittany flag on it. Histiocytes. Those are our cruising phagocytes in our connective tissue. So we put these little dudes out there all over the body to make sure that we're only seeing cells that are Brittany cells. Respiratory bursts, if we come in and find something abnormal, this is released from the monocytes or the macrophages. It's bleaching. It's bleaching. So the monocytes actually release a bleach. And it not only kills the monocyte, it's kind of a cellular suicide, but it kills everything in that area. Little explosion. That's what pus is. When you see pus coming out, that means that everything in that area was obliterated by a respiratory burst. Isn't that interesting? Defensins, released by neutrophils, and they will pierce the membranes of something abnormal and cause its contents to leak. Defensins. These are all in your book. And then we have these special forces cells. that are called NKCs. They're also known as null cells or third population cells. They're very unique. They're special forces. They cruise the entire body, and anything abnormal they kill. So these are really all innate responses, cells that all of us have, no matter where we live, where we grew up, what our immune system was all about. We all have these types of cells in our body. Things you should be aware of with tissue injury and inflammation is we often get vasodilation. You guys remember what that is? Vessels go, whoosh. When vessels open up, more cells can get to the area of infection and we can fight off. If you're having a battle, do you want more of your buddies to come to you and help you out, or do you want less? You want more, usually. I mean, not in every scenario, I suppose, but you want more cells there. So we vasodilate, we mobilize the phagocytes, and we bring in the neutrophils. And neutrophils and macrophages are the main cause of pus, which is actually a clinical term. Other things that can happen. Start of these two. I usually put opsonization on and interferons on. Opsonization is a term that is making tasty. Making it tasty. You'll read about opsonization and MAC complex both in the textbook, and I'd expect you to go take a quick look at it, just kind of know what's going on with it. MAC is membrane attack complex. It's actually when we bore a hole in the membrane of something abnormal and cause it to leak out. Opsonization is making tasty, where we actually flag something. So the nice thing is we've got this abnormal little bacteria in our system, and we will actually flag it with, you guys heard of antibodies? We'll get the antibodies. They're made by B cells. We actually flag it with antibodies. And where that little dude might have kind of slid through the body unnoticed, if it was just a little blue cell, now we've flagged it, and it's not going to slip through our immune system. When this gets to the lymph node, is it going to be recognized? Yeah, that's called opsonized. It's opsonized, it's made tasty. Those are other defense mechanisms we use. And then interferons are fascinating. So if we've got cells in our body, if we're all this group of cells right here, and all of a sudden Desi gets infected with a virus, she's going down, all right? That cell's going to die at some point. But Desi is a team player, and she sends out interferon. She's warning all of you adjacent cells in her family that look, viral infection going on, and those little things here are called interferons, and they're going to warn all the adjacent cells to thicken their membrane, get tough. We got a virus in the neighborhood, and that's what our interferons are. And they actually can chemically make interferons now. So clinically, if you have a systemic viral infection in your body, something like HIV, you can actually take interferons, and it will protect other cells from being infected. Isn't that interesting? Those are called interferons. Also on the test, there's not much in immune. I really trimmed the immune system notes down. So if it's in your notes, you better know what is going on, because that's important. Pyrogens. What's a pyro? Pyrotechnic?
Oh,
fire.
Fire.
Is fire. Pyrogens. We have chemicals in our body that are called pyrogenic agents or pyrogens. Macrophages release them. And so pyrogens, if a macrophage comes upon this dude, we're out cruising the body and he comes upon this dude, a macrophage is going to try to eat it, correct? But the other thing a macrophage is going to do is release pyrogens. It's going to throw out pyrogens, which is going to cause what to happen in our body for the temperature?
Increase.
It increases our temperature. And so do people who have sick or infections usually have a higher elevated temperature? Yeah, that's where it comes from. So you guys getting the big point on immune system? It's not that hard. Immune's not that hard. But you got to figure out what we're doing. I don't know what this is doing here. Is this supposed to be here? No, I have no idea what this is. This is not supposed to be here. If this is in my body, it's going to go away. What are ways in our body to get rid of this WD-40 that's not supposed to be here? That's what I'm talking about here. And it's a systemic thing. Immune system is systemic, it's all over our body. And if I've got this in my body and it's abnormal, would you expect me to have an elevated temperature while I'm fighting it off? You would. What does elevated temperature do to cell metabolism? Anybody know? You know why we get a fever? Yeah, it speeds it up. It speeds up cell metabolism. So if I've got a battle going on and I got a bunch of macrophages trying to eat this WD-40, I would like to have an elevated temperature, all right? So I don't understand, I've never understood as an instructor or as a parent, why do you give children medication that lowers their temperature? If their temperature is 101, excellent. That means you're fighting an infection, and the best way to fight an infection is with an elevated temperature so that your cells can actually work faster and harder. I get it. As a parent, you're like, oh, it's 103, 104. That's a problem, all right? That's getting into a problem. But to give your kid all these drugs that are out there like Tylenol and other things, this is personal. It's not, I'm not telling you not to do this. You do whatever you want. But I don't get if your kid's got 100 and you give them this Tylenol to cut their temperature down tonight. Oh, it's normal now. Well, I think you're actually just extending the illness because now the child, you're taking one of the big agents away from fighting off the immune system. But certainly we all worry when your child has 102, 103, you start getting very worried about it. You should monitor that. But at 100 and 101, I'm not sure it's a great idea to give your kid something that cuts temperature. Anyway, with pyrogens, liver and spleen sequester iron and zinc. And we know the pyrogens increase, MR means metabolic rate of cells. We don't want it to be too high, temperature to be too high, because that inactivates enzymes and can cause long-term damage. All right, so all that happens, everything I've talked about so far since our last break is this can is in my body, and we have an enormous number of cells, all of us, that will attack this can. Before we call out the big battle, we didn't even really get into the immune system. We've got neutrophils and macrophages and killer cells and all of this, because every day I just sucked in bacteria when I just breathe like that. And I don't want to activate all my immune cells. I don't want my white blood cell differential count to go up every time I eat a sandwich, all right? We don't really call in the big guns, if you will, and I apologize for the military references if that bothers you, but it really is actually, it works as a metaphor for this, because this is what we're really talking about. So we're not really gonna call out the big dogs with this one can. If I got 30 cans, it's time to call in what we call the immune system. All right, so everything I talked about before was non-specific, but then you get into the immune system proper, which this is when we're gonna have a battle going on. This is when we're gonna get our differential count elevating. It's antigen specific, which means we can target specific things we've seen before. So if you grow up in Harrisburg, after you're about 10 years of age, have you seen about every antigen, every bacteria, virus that comes through Harrisburg? Sure. All right. So you'll be able to attack it quickly. You might go to bed one night. I know some of you guys do this. Anybody go to bed Wednesday night? You're just tired, worn out. You don't feel good. It's 8 o'clock, but you go to bed anyway. You're just done. And you wake up the next day. Okay, you're good. You go back to school and you keep working, and life goes on. You probably were fighting off something that you'd seen before, and you can fight it off in about 24 hours. If you haven't seen that before, it takes you a lot longer to figure it out. That's what I mean about antigen specificity. It's systemic, which means it's all over our body. We don't have one organ that we just fight things off in. It's all over our body. And it has a memory. So if you've seen it, when you were 6 years old in Harrisburg, you have a memory of that for the rest of your life. It kind of wanes because I just got a shot last quarter. Anybody know what that shot was? It was for shingles. Shingles. Now shingles is actually something I've had before. Anybody know what that's called? Chickenpox. When I was 10 years old, I missed the city championship basketball game because I got the chickenpox. And I had a memory of the chickenpox for 40 years. Yep, 40 years. Now you know how old I am. 40 years, all right? But as my immune system gets a little bit older, I could get a recurrence of chickenpox because that virus is in my system the rest of my life. And my immune system's kept it at bay, kept it basically immune from my body. But as you age and getting closer to 55 and 60, it could reoccur, and that's called shingles, which is the second reoccurrence of chickenpox. But my immune system so far has been working great because I haven't had shingles.
Will it be the same for the kids that have been vaccinated against chickenpox?
Yep, same for the kids that have been vaccinated with chickenpox. We primed our immune system. It's good for a lifetime. You guys know the life expectancy of a male in 1950? About 57 years of age. So that's pretty good. Immune system, all right, 57. Now, life expectancy of a male in the United States is pushing 80. So that's a lot longer you're living. So we're gonna see things reoccur because our immune systems have not been wired for it. Cells of the immune system, T cell, B cell, and monocytes. These are the three cells of the immune system. T cells become immunocompetent in the thymus. Cross out Spencer, that's a long story. It's kind of fun, but we don't have time for it anymore. It's not on the test, so cross out Spencer. B cells, they make the antibodies. B cells are formed in the bone marrow. And then monocytes are macrophages. Food of choice, virus and bacteria, they present antigen. So, let's take a look at B cells. You gotta know the function of B cells, T cells, and how they work. So here's a B cell, up here at the top. The primary response. B cells are lymphocytes. You guys got that? So you know lymphocytes are made in the bone marrow and they come from a hemocytoblast and they cruise the body and they are B cells. And they come in contact with a antigen, which is an abnormal substance in our body, and it's the primary response, initial encounter with an antigen, and they will start cloning. It's called B cell cloning. And there you get Star Wars. Anybody see Star Wars? The clones, Return of the Clones, all right? Same idea. Clones are simply replicants of the mother cell. And so you've got B cells, they've come in contact with something abnormal, and they will clone. And they clone into what we call plasma cells and memory cells, both of which are on the test. Plasma cells make antibodies. Memory cells will remain in my system for the rest of my life. So the first encounter with something we've never seen before, you're age 6, you're playing in a mud pond outside of Harrisburg, and you eat the mud pie, and you get bacteria exposed. First time in, you make antibodies, you make a memory cell, and you fight off that infection. The next time you see that mud pie next spring, and you eat it, have you seen the antigens in that mud pie? Yes, you have. Second response, much faster. We make an enormous number of plasma cells, make more memory cells, more antibodies, and we fight it off overnight. First exposure, 3 to 5 days you might be sick. Second exposure, the same antigen, you might be sick for 24 hours. Third and fourth, we take care of it within 6 to 8 hours, period. So, I fly on spring break to the Middle East. I'm gonna have a lot of this. First exposure, primary response to things I've never seen before. And am I gonna get sick? Yeah, I'm gonna get sick. 3 to 5 days, 7 days, whatever. Every time I see a new antigen. Unless I get what? Shots. Unless I get shots before I go, which actually prime my immune system so that I don't get sick. And that's what people who travel into strange and exotic places have to or are recommended to get shots. So plasma cells and antibodies. Yes?
So I had a question about the memory B cells. So, well, I was born in Mexico.
Yep.
And we recently went back to Mexico, and
Yep.
the only one that got sick was my husband.
Yep.
So was it the memory B cells that kind of
Yep.
come back from my childhood?
How long
Like,
did you don't mind me asking? How long did you live in Mexico?
7 years.
7 years. Perfect. Your immune system was very well developed in Mexico, so you're not going to have a problem going back unless you see something new that wasn't there when you were growing up. Newer people who hadn't have not been to Mexico or not grown up there, don't have an immune system for Mexico. I've got an immune system for Indiana, all right? And so Oregon, not so good for me. When I first moved here, you get sick more, you see new stuff, so that's just the way it works. All right, good. So those are B cells. No, B cells turn into plasma cells and memory cells. I can't tell you enough that you should watch the interactive physiology on the immune system. It goes through all of this very, very nicely. So primary response is slow. And we'll clone plasma cells and memory cells. And at the bottom of this slide, those plasma cells, they make antibodies. They make antibodies. Secondary response is fast. We make plasma cells and more antibodies, and levels remain high for weeks. That's why you vaccinate. Guess what a vaccination is? That's your primary. It activates and makes memory of that. And so kids are given these attenuated vaccines. Kids, adults, are given attenuated vaccines that do not, that are dead, so they won't make you sick. It's not true that flu vaccines give you the flu. If you get the flu after a flu vaccine, you just got the flu, and that vaccine you just got did not cover that flu. But the vaccines do not give you the flu. I'd recommend them, although I think I got the flu this year and struggled through it, and even though I had a vaccine. Polio, smallpox are typical things that used to be giving vaccinations for. If you're traveling, you're given artificial vaccines, if you will, called gamma globulin shots. And those are what is antibodies, basically, are given to you in a lab setting with shots. You gotta look at what antibodies are. You'll want to use the textbook more than you have for this chapter. I've given you the prompters of things that are on the test. So when I say antibody structure, you might go to the textbook and just see what an antibody looks like, all right? It has polypeptide chains, light and heavy, and it has 2 binding sites for antigen. That's what an antibody is, and it's made by plasma cells. So the textbook is pretty good on the immune system because it's a new chapter, not an old chapter. They kept it pretty brief and to the point. Other cells that you should know with the immune system. Cytotoxic, how we doing? 5 minutes, good. Other cells, so we got B cells, T cells, and the macrophages. Here's the T cells. They're called killer T. They don't recognize free antigens, but they can kill things. They involve a double recognition. So a killer T is cruising the body. And I think I said earlier, as I'm cruising the body, and I'm a killer T cell. And we said Desi was infected with a virus. You guys remember that? So I'm going to recognize Desi, because that's all I look for as a killer cell, is I'm looking for an infected cell. And we said Desi had a virus in her. And so when I say double recognition, I'm looking at an antigen, which is the virus, and a self cell. And the way I recognize that is by a marker on Desi's cell called an MHC protein. And if she has an MHC protein and a fragment of the virus presenting, she's screaming out to me, I need to be killed. She's a self cell, all right? And she's infected. She's going to present an MHC marker, an antigen fragment, viral fragment, and I'm going to see it, and unfortunately I'm going to take Desi down. I'm a killer T cell. But before I took her down, what has she done to the rest of you? She released interferon, so that the rest of you know that there's a virus in the neighborhood. Are we good on that? That's how our immune system works. Those are killer T cells. They have to have double recognition. Because I don't want to go by here, and here's Kayla, and I'm a killer T cell, and I'm going to kill her. All right, I'm not going to kill her because she doesn't have a virus. She's not double recognized by me. So I keep looking through the body, going around to all these cells, and all these cells are good. And I'm kind of the person who's walking around deciding whether or not they're going to die or not. So you need to make sure that you have a double recognition. Yeah.
So is that how an autoimmune disease would work?
Yeah, it's exactly. When these killer T's go rogue, these become rogue cells, and you start attacking your own cells even though they're not double presenting. That's an autoimmune disease. Very good. Very good. Cytotoxic T's will inject perforin, which puts a hole in Desi's cell membrane and will cause her cytoplasmic contents to leak, thus killing that cell. Then it detaches itself and keeps going. I keep looking. We also have, don't worry about these three, cross these out. I didn't put them on the test. Might as well not get into it. Helper T cells. Another type of T cell. What do you think they do? If a killer T cell kills, a helper T cell does what? It helps. It helps, all right? That's what it says. And so what it's going to do is it's going to walk around the body. I'm not going to do anything to Desi. I'm a helper cell, and I'm going to come up and go, oh, I'm sorry, I hope you're not, I'm using you as a virally infected cell today. But if I'm a helper T, I'm going to come up and go, uh-oh, Desi's infected, and I'm going to ring the alarm. And the alarms are chemicals that I'll release, so that I'll bring in other cells that will attack Desi. That makes sense? I don't really do anything as a helper cell, other than help the immune system get going. So I recognize infected cells in the body. That's a helper T cell. And that big chemical, double underline this because it's on the test, is interleukin-2, IL-2. IL-2. That's the chemical released by the helper T cells to alert our immune cells. And then suppressor Ts, what do you think they do? Suppress. Good, suppress. These are cells that walk around and inspect after it's all done. So Desi, sorry Desi, you went away. You got wiped out by the killer T cell with the helpers alerted. The killer Ts that you were infected, and the suppressor cell comes by and goes, yep, she's done. They suppress the immune system and bring us back to homeostasis. So those are three types of T cells. You should know what each of them does and what stimulates them to act. Last slide in AMP2. There you go. These are two chemicals that are on the exam that you'll need to know where they come from, macrophages, and what they activate. Interleukins 1 and 2, they're called cytokines. Those are usually both on the exam. Questions? Thank you. Sorry we're late. 1 minute. Get out of here. Nope, I made it.